KwaZulu-Natal's newly appointed Public Works and Infrastructure MSc, Martin Meyer, has acknowledged the department faces significant challenges. The new MSc has vowed to rid his department of incompetence and corruption. He has also promised a police crackdown on construction mafias. Meyer says that previous attempts to negotiate with the so-called mafia have failed. He joins me live. MSc, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us. And let's start off with some background into just what you know about the construction mafia and certainly the challenges that they've brought to the people of KZN.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. The construction mafia really started having a big impact in our province in 2015. They target both government projects as well as private construction projects, which unfortunately have scared off investors from our province. It's also getting increasingly harder for the Department of Public Works to get contractors to complete government projects, as they are too scared to go on board or tender for these projects because of the total violence that we have seen from the construction mafia. So it's having a severe negative impact on investment in our province. It's delaying projects by years, sometimes 2 or 3 years in certain cases. So it's just a totally unacceptable situation where the province is being held hostage and where the good people and the honest people of this province are being held hostage by a small group of people that does not want to follow the law.
So you talk about a small group of people that causing so much pandemonium, right? So what is the source of their power?
Well, it is a reason why we call them construction mafia. They follow very much the same modus operandi as we've seen in the mafia. I don't know, I grew up with those mafia movies of the 80s and 90s. And they use very much the same modus operandi of using intimidation. They come heavily armed and then they scare and literally intimidate both private contractors and government, which is scary. How can you intimidate a whole government into submitting and giving contracts to them? And that cannot be tolerated and will no longer be tolerated in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay, so obviously a new broom sweeps clean, and excited to be having this conversation with you. So let's talk about these specific measures that government has implemented to combat violence and intimidation tactics used by the construction mafia, and how you'll put all of this to bed.
So there's 2 things that have shown that this new government of unity in KwaZulu-Natal takes this very seriously. The first is that the Premier Ntuli, has put the community safety and security department directly under him. There's no more a separate MEC, but the Premier has taken it so seriously that he himself will be taking charge of the crime situation within our province. And also the development of having an infrastructure department. Our province never had an infrastructure department before. Public Works has existed. But in creating an infrastructure department, these 2 steps have shown that this unity government is very serious about improving infrastructure and improving crime and safety within our province. So together with the Premier, we will be engaging with him and other role players, including role players in the private sector, community organizations and civic organizations, to form an urgent task team, not a task team just to talk, but one that will have very clear mandates, very clear directives and timeframes to work with. We are very happy to engage with the so-called construction mafia and with smaller service providers, but we will not be intimidated, and this government is made up of parties that is committed to follow the Constitution, and in the same way we will only engage with groups and organizations that's also committed to follow the rule of law and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa.
So when we started the conversation, you took us back to your childhood where you watched these mafia movies, right? Now, similarly, a lot of what we watch on television is where organizations or nations say that they don't negotiate with terrorists, right? And these are obviously illegitimate groups that are trying to push similarly illegitimate agendas based on obviously who's having the conversation. Now, the mafia in many ways are illegitimate groups that are trying to force their way, I'd like to imagine, into certain situations. And you're talking about negotiating with them.
So no, what we will do is we will talk to any organization or group that is willing to follow the law. And that's the only people that we will talk to. If people are following these tactics, these intimidation tactics, they can no longer talk to government, they must go talk to the judges, because that's the only place that they will go is to court. We will not be tolerating anything like that. As I told one of your colleagues the other day, illegal tenantpreneurs and illegal business mafias should not save my number, shouldn't call me. We are not willing to talk to them. We will only deal with legitimate businesses who's willing to follow the law.
So give us details on the newly established police unit tasked with handling disruptions at government construction sites. How will the government ensure that the police unit is adequately resourced and trained to deal with the construction mafia? Because I'd imagine that there's an absence of some skill set if they already have not been able to police and potentially have also been intimidated in the process.
Absolutely. And there has been a big challenges with policing within our province. We are very aware of that, which is why the Premier has now put this department straight under him. We also know that policing is a national mandate, not a provincial mandate, and SAPS does not report to the provincial government, but to the national government. Therefore, we are anxiously awaiting President Ramaphosa to complete his cabinet so that we can immediately start engagement with our counterparts in the national government to improve the resources that we get, to see if we can get some of the specialized task units from SAPS deployed to our province to assist us with this. And also because we really need the national government to assist us with this major problem, because it doesn't only affect our province, it affects other provinces as well. And with KwaZulu-Natal being a major player within our country, especially with the Port of Durban and the Port of Richards Bay being affected, if KwaZulu-Natal is suffering, the whole of South Africa is suffering. And therefore, we're going to engage with our national government counterparts to assist us. Furthermore, like I said previously, one of the shortcomings of previous task teams is it didn't really bring in the private sector, didn't bring in civic organizations, CPFs, all type of organizations that's out there that deal with these things on a daily basis. And we're going to bring them in as well to make them part of the solution, to talk to us, to give us advice, and also use them as part of the solution going forward. So it's going to be a holistic approach. I don't want anyone to think there's a quick fix to this problem. It will be a serious problem. In some cases, it might get a little bit worse before it gets better, because the cures sometimes make us a bit more sick before we get better. But we're going to ask the people of KwaZulu-Natal to be patient with us, to work with us, and to assist us if getting rid of the scourge of illegal the mafia that is just totally disrupting building projects in our province.
I'm glad that you're not fooled into thinking that this will be a walk in the park. So let's talk, Mr. Meyer, about those challenges that you envision.
So for the department as a whole, there are quite a few issues. As we know that government departments has had their budget slashed quite severely over the last few budget periods from the national government, the money we get from Pretoria, and that we now have to be able to do more with less. Some of the other challenges that we are facing is that the department itself is struggling being capacitated to deal with all these issues, and capacitation is something we're going to really and seriously look at. We also can't be blind to the fact that our department might be, and there's a very strong suspicions and reasons to think so, might also have people on the inside who is part of the problem, not part of the solution. And that is something we're going to have to deal with. And unfortunately, those aren't things that's easily dealt with. But I'll be following the examples of my colleague, Mayor Chris Pappas, who has faced very similar issues in the municipality when he took over. And he managed to deal with this type of staffing issues and with problems within his departments. And we will be following very much the same things, using lifestyle audits, using skills audits, just to make sure we have the right people who are willing and able to do the job. And then lastly, I think a large part of the problem that we're going to have to deal with is that the department has kept on a lot of buildings that's unused, underutilized, while renting other buildings for the government to use. So we're going to have to really streamline this department, get rid of things we don't use so that we have more money available to deal with these issues and the issues that actually affects the people of our province.
Mr. Meyer, do you fear for your safety at all? We're talking about a 68 billion, well, certainly in terms of losses. So that's the sort of levels of money that are going around. And when you talk about mafia, you obviously talk about the various threats that have existed, and certainly some harm that has come to many individuals that have tried to stand in the way of this mafia.
Yeah, and just yesterday there was a horrific shooting incident in Pinetown that seems to be linked to construction mafia, where a high-ranking member of a construction company was attacked and shot at. Luckily, he survived, and we're very happy to hear that. But still, our thoughts go to him and his family in this difficult time. And yes, safety concerns is obviously a concern in South Africa, but I am not alone in that. Many people in my province fear for their lives. Just walking in the street is dangerous in some parts of our province, unfortunately. But a job has to be done. and we can't be bullied, and we can't be paralyzed by fear, saying that we're not going to act just because we're afraid for what the illegitimate and illegal people are going to do. So we have to stand fast, and that's why I asked that the whole province stand with us, because I know for a fact that the vast majority of the citizens of KwaZulu-Natal and of South Africa are law-abiding people who want to improve our country and will stand with us in this fight against illegal business owners.
Now, what penalties are in place for individuals and groups found guilty of disrupting construction projects?
Well, that is a matter for the courts to decide, and very obviously there's various different laws that are usually broken. Brandishing a firearm, for instance. These guys quite often show up with semi-automatic and automatic weapons. So intimidation is against the law. So there's various laws actually being broken, and all these laws will then get criminal penalties. So there's not only going to be normal penalties and fines, but you can go to jail for these type of things. It is against the law, and we will be engaging with our colleagues in the security cluster and the courts to make sure the law is being enforced in our province.
Now, how will the government ensure that the 30% provision for local businesses is enforced across all government tenders? I mean, stakeholder engagement and support is something that's going to be key. And I suppose it's also one of the challenges, right, that certain individuals within the locale of KZN feel that they're being hard done by in as far as this distribution or lack thereof of that 30%.
Yeah. So, one of the things that really concerns us, and it was been a big part of the Democratic Alliance's election campaign, is that very few people are actually benefiting from government tenders and government projects and government contracts. It seems to be the same people benefiting over and over and over again, which means this is actually not assisting us with job creation. It's not assisting us with spreading the wealth across the province. So that's one of the things. The 30% is there to actually assist us with making sure that people in the communities where we're building these buildings, where we're having these projects, actually benefit themselves from these projects. And there's going to have to be a review on how it has been done in the past. And I've already asked for the department to start with that review so that we can look at ways how to improve it, how to do it better, and to make sure that it is really the communities that benefit. As I've been saying a couple of times over the last few days, it's called the Department of Public Works because it belongs to the public. And the public should be benefiting from all the work that is being done by this department.